Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the T.O.A Podcast. I am your host, Onvermel. Onvermel. A little slurry there. Here today with Ek.
X my name.
X's name, and X is the game. First off, disclaimer: if we do randomly have pauses where we just kind of feel like we have a brain fart, that's because we have a hockey game in front of us. So
we're Canadians, eh?
Oh yeah, totally, eh? So sorry about that, eh? Okay, but get a boot with this podcast. The boot doesn't even work. Well, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about uses of Bionicle parts and system sets. And before we actually talk about our official thing today, I want to bring up the two main ones I totally forgot about. Line to a new armor in Exoforce, as well as
Did you forget about that?
Hookie Dark Orange or Call Hand in the Millennium Falcon.
Ah, yes.
That was the reason I even thought about that topic, and I totally forgot about those. So there's your part two. But I mean, we did briefly mention how system sets I used were obviously the system Bionicle sets, which you could. Let's be honest, their aesthetic wasn't much far from X-Force. They had the same sort of...
Yeah. Except without any proper mechs.
Yes, they had no
But
mech.
if you wanted a mech, all you had to do was grab your Bionicle figure and voila.
Well, funny thing is, I know one of the sets, a prototype version of the Tower of T.O.A, I believe, had a T.O.A Metru scale Kitongu.
Yes.
And so a few people who also are aware of Bionicle prototypes and such, that's amazing. And I love the idea of using a Bionicle, like an actual Bionicle figure, with a system scale, and actually having it work. Because I know in the story, Kitongu was meant to be a lot bigger, and definitely in the movie, you get the sense that Kitongu's big.
Not quite to a giant...
But think about when he crushes Sidorak. Sidorak kind of looks up to him a little bit. The thing about Kitongu, you never really see him standing next to anyone, directly in the movie. He's either sitting off there, climbing this tower here, or you don't get him in the same shot. So it's I think that was intentional, but, I really wish they had done
That was definitely...
Also, just imagine having a Key Orange Metru body. They've done Key Orange Metru feet, hips, legs, none of the limb, upper armor. So pretty much the lower half you can get a Key Orange.
Without the armor, of
I really need to look at those pictures again. But the system Bionicle sets in general, let's be honest. If you ask anyone's official opinion, most of it was they were not so great.
No, not really at all.
I mean, let's be honest. First off, Lego was not only trying to use Bionicle parts in system, which are two systems that's very hard to meld.
Other pieces
Let's be honest, they were basically making system buildings with Bionicle weapons slapped on top.
And sometimes some masks.
I do think, at least with the first year, 2005, one of the things that worked the best, though, was using the mat heads, as decoration to building. I don't know what it was specifically about that, but I do find that it, I think it's because the mat head without the eyes is a flush piece. It's completely flush on the backside. And so when you have that up against the wall, there's no weird gap or anything. It's scaling. It's not too technique-y. It's just a very weird brick, essentially. Yeah. So I think that piece specifically does work really well. But even the first year, it's let's be honest, your big problem the first year. I would say this: the buildings and the batting ram, all the non-figure parts of the first wave was actually solid, not amazing. But
they certainly were the best buildings of all the ones.
Let's be honest. Compared to a lot of other Lego themes, I would say they lived up to the title of playset.
Yeah, especially I'm thinking of that Paraka Stronghold. No.
The Battle of Metronui?
No, the Paraka one that you have.
Oh, the Lava Gate Bridge.
Yes, it's basically just pillars holding some platforms.
I mean, that's also a large part of the function with that one. Because that had the whole bridge function that was supposed to collapse. There's a lot of features but yeah, it's very much, they're more akin to the sort of play sets you would get with other toy lines that aren't I would say set basically action figure toy lines or something like that. The problem is we didn't have much other toys outside Lego.
Certainly not that sort. We had trains.
I'm gonna just stick with it. I'm gonna just say maybe something like Polly Pockets, or
Barbie.
Barbie. You have it's about the figures as the characters, but you have like play sets to go them. There's not like a whole lot of crazy
detailing.
It's not about the build. It's about
the scene. It's more about a place to put your figure.
It's about the scene.
Even though your figures...
Because let's be honest.
Rather garbage.
Well, yeah, but like every Hordika set had all 6 Hordika and 8 Visorak.
Yeah.
That's a lot of big figurines to play around with. Even if they...
Or single piece and unposable pieces of
But
plastic.
the fact you can get 6 almost makes it up for it a little bit.
A little bit, yes.
Not completely, but it does make up... I think they could have done with having, like, a Rudok and a Sidorak figure. Adding a little bit more. Like, yes, you do have an upscale, a full-scale Visorak for the Kagarak.
Which was nice.
Which is pretty much against the whole Kitongo aspect I was talking about, but actually done with Visorak. So, no, definitely, like, I do like the builds from that first year. Well, this thing is, we don't own many of them. Kind of.
I own 2.
From the first year, collectively, you and me will have 3. We're missing the Battle of Metro Nui. From 2006, we have 1.
You have 1.
I have 1.
I have none.
I own all of the 2007 sets, I just haven't opened them. I have them all sealed.
Yeah, we've never really handled those in person. Someday.
I kind of forgot I had them for a while. They're kind of sitting on the bottom shelf, despite being able to see them pretty easily. But, like, also, let's be honest. Let's be real, Lego missed the mark on a lot. And they did improve a lot. This is the thing, actually, the thing about 2006 is I look at it as an improvement on the figs, but a downgrade on the sets.
Yes, 100%.
Because, well, it's like, okay, I'm sure the Proca Stronghold's a great set. It's the big set, it's a flagship. So, of course, the flagship set's going to be good, right?
Yeah.
The Mind Bridge set's okay. It
is what it is.
Wonky. It's very finicky to move around. But, like, one set I don't like how it looks was always the Race for the Mask of Life. The one with the 2, quote-unquote, ships.
Those are
which
weird
completely
vehicles.
is non-canon. And so it's like they are very... Those are the most look like you had some plates, some Technic bricks, and all the Bionicle parts you had and the extra Bionicle parts you don't use. Let's slap them on some vehicles.
Called a vehicle.
So it's like, yeah, the figs got better, but the sets... Because this is the thing I look about the Battle of Metro Nui and the Proca Stronghold. The Battle of Metro Nui is an actual building. There's a front wall, there's a gate, and there's, like, rooms...
Well,
like
even Tower of T.O.A feels like a proper tower.
I like my buildings having a front wall. Now, Tower of T.O.A doesn't have a proper gate inside the mouth, but also,
It's not very well defended tower is what you're saying.
Exactly.
But it's still a proper tower.
But like, the Proca Stronghold, you have the gateway, and then you have, like, various parts that connect to it. Now, obviously, they're going for something different, but it's called the Proca Stronghold. It doesn't look like a stronghold. It looks more like the Proca's,
lair.
I don't know, it doesn't really, it just doesn't look like a... Oh, sorry. Watching like a game, just have decent play there for a second. And now it's ruined. Yeah, and I was like, it's called Stronghold, but it doesn't look very strong. It doesn't look like it can hold much, and it's just kind of... It's weird the way they went about it. Like, I do like, though, the Proca Stronghold has all the Zamor spheres in there. But, of course, then you kind of got the weird stuff where they have to give the heroes, like, some sort of, what's it called? Equipment to siege it.
Yes.
And so you have this, like, weird chariot thing for the T.O.A to ride. And that's kind of important, actually, where a lot of the sets, to me, don't feel right. Because
the vehicles that they made in all 3 waves were kind of just, well,
the first wave didn't really have any vehicles outside the battering ram.
Yeah.
Which brings me up to the point why I think these vehicles don't really work. Main one is, they were never shown in the story. Like, from the first wave, 2005, every set is, except for the Visorak Gate, which is a Toys R Us exclusive, so it wasn't part of the main line.
They're basically semi.
But the Visorak Battering Ram, the Tower of T.O.A, and the Battle of Metro Nui, they're all canon.
Yeah.
Those locations are all canon. Like, and even technically, like, the Hordika's weapons are canon as training tools, which I think was just a way to justify it. But, there was an effort to make those sets, fit into the story. And you see all the locations in comics. They use those designs in the comics.
Yes, that's very true.
But, like, with 2006, you start to lose a little bit of canonicity because the Proca Stronghold is a canon location, but I don't think they ever used the design of the set in the comics. So, losing the bit of the connection, the lava gate, one. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's Lavagate, the Chamber of Life Lab. The second biggest one that I have, the location's canon, but the T.O.A had these surfboards as Xamasphere launchers.
Definitely not canon.
That is definitely not canon. Also, I don't think that bridge in the story has booby traps with it. I think it's literally just a bridge. Like, I don't remember there being, like, traps or anything on it. So you know that. But then the last two sets, which was basically a little outpost tower with, like, what it's known as a Fenrack that they ride, and then the Race to the Mask of Life, neither of those are canon, like, at all. Not even the slightest bit canon. And then the final wave, T.O.A Terrain Crawler. Alright, I think everything in that set's technically canon. Outside, like, the appearances of the characters.
See, like, the 2007 wave, it was... The figs weren't as good as 2006.
But they improved
but still
the
better
arm
than
design.
the first year. But the vehicles and sets were an improvement, but not as good as the second year.
I haven't... Because I feel like this... I think they incorporated the Bionicle pieces into them better as vehicles than the second year. But because you only have vehicles... Like, the smallest set looks fine. The T.O.A Terrain Crawler looks good. But the middle set looks kind of just awkward. But that middle set's, like, historically not good. Because you... First off, it's the infamous T.O.A Yellow.
Yes.
Which my theory is 100% this. Because the only character in Mari that they did not make in his minifig was Karapper. And I feel like at some point with the... Because also, you know, Lego was budgeting the new molds for the sets. So they only made, like, 3... Baraki heads and 3 T.O.A heads, right? So, of course, you weren't going to have a head for every character. So I think at some point in the design team and or the marketing team or something, it was supposed to be Karapper in the set. And then it got goofed up and they made it a T.O.A head. And they were like, well, we're just going to throw him with the good guys now. We're not going to... We've already invested a little time in this. We're not going to keep the line. We're not going to redo it to make a Karapper. Because the one character that they got, like, a really weird version is yellow, and the only character that we're missing is a yellow character. A coincidence?
I think not.
Exactly. So I'm like, I do believe that T.O.A Yellow was at some point in the design process, like the early design process was, like, it might be as simple as someone just jotted down a list of figs for this set, and it was like yellow bad guy, yellow good guy, sort of thing, like yellow good guy, or like whatever. And at some point, they just like, okay, well, the yellow character here, we'll use this headpiece. And then when that went through, people were like, oh, that's a good guy. We'll put him with the good guy set. Because I kind of suspect the people working on the system sets weren't the regular Bionicle group of people.
Yeah, because...
I would say it's the same people that made designed the X-Force sets, at least to some degree. Because there are some building techniques that are very similar in both of them. Because let's be honest... Unless the people who were the Bionicle designers got stuck with the system and were like, we have no idea what we're doing and just didn't properly have the time or effort. But like I said, I think it was other people who weren't aware, honestly. But 2007 did do one nice thing, and that was give the new arm design to the figs. Mm-hmm. Because with the 2006 figures using the robot arms and the shoulders... Sometimes if they get too stiff, they just pop off when you move them, or they snap. Like that style arm had a problem of breaking.
They did slightly update the mold at some point, but yeah.
Many, many years. Like back with I think the Hero Factor, they changed the mold, but I mean the first year. But with the second wave, but with Mari, they just decided to make a whole new upper arm mold, which is better for the figs. 100% better for the figs, but it's not as useful as a part.
Not at all.
Because the best thing about the Extra-Force arm is fingers for Bionicles are just being, because it's a clip and not just a hole going through it, which just makes it more versatile. And just having all its colors of Extra-Force fingers is great, by the way. Like,
yeah, some of them are not very common in those colors.
Well, dark blue I think only still comes with them. But more specific, actually, this nice thing is because they kept the colors consistent with the larger figure sets, Falk has Falk white arms. Mm-hmm. So if you want to add a little bit more detail to a character using Falk white, you actually have those pieces. And I've seen people use those on every bit of part of a body with Bionicle. So you have what's it called? Options, exactly. But the one thing I think that makes the system sets more, especially the first wave and the last wave, more interesting to Bionicle fans is recolors. First year, you know, I wouldn't say there was many. There was pretty much your gold recolors. The gold Kakon, the gold, and the two versions of the gold Vizrak heads were pretty much your recolors. And of course, you got the light gold rare variants, which are highly sought after. But having, you know, at that point, let's be honest, the only dark gold you had was Irutni, that had just come out that year, Lekon, and Takanuva. Not a whole lot. So having not only a new gold mask, but also a couple gold Vizrak heads, which is like, okay, this is pretty cool. I mean, I don't know if people actually like mocking with them, but just having more dark gold, period, is more dark gold's more dark gold. I'm always going to be happy. And, you know,
I think I do prefer the dark gold color to light gold when it comes to building.
It doesn't help that light gold's been done to death, and there's a lot of variation in the shades of it. And so it's like, not really the most, I don't know, maybe it's just the rarity factor, you know. Because it's rare, I like it.
That is quite possible as well.
But I will say this, Light Gold Kakon does look pretty good. Especially because light gold masks weren't very common either.
Yeah.
But there was another recolor that from the, what's it called? The first wave, that was more noticeable, was the dark blue Bork shield, or face plate.
Mm-hmm.
From
solid
the Tower of Toa. And like, solid colors weren't very common. You had solid black, Keytorns from Kitongu, and then dark blue. And actually, because there was dark blue, I specifically went and made a Kitongu species mock using dark blue just because I had that piece. And so, you know, and you also got some rare colors, like on the Kagarak, you got two dark blue Toa legs, like the 2001 style legs in dark blue. Which
they came with Hordika no
but they only had one, you know? So you had two more there. So you were given some decent dark blue Bionicle parts with the sets. But, you know,
if you sum up that wave in one color, it's dark blue.
Yeah, outside of the Tower Toa. Oh, and then you also got a glow-in-the-dark spinner with the
Battle of Metronui.
And the Keytorn Mata heads.
Yes, for those who like to use the Mata heads, that's very nice.
Well, it's like, not only that, it's like, you know, Mata heads are really good, but they're also just good for, like, I would say armor on some models, too, like, sometimes. And that was, like, the only... Well, it also did come in silver that year, too. On
Tower
Toa. Not that that's as noticeable.
It's a subtle difference, but sometimes
if you want to give every Toa element of Toa a different head color, I think you can technically do it because of the silver. Or you're like just a couple shades shy, but you know, it's nice to have more variety, you know. I'm always having more variety. But oh yeah, then the last recolor that I actually almost forgot about, but then didn't, is the only recolor of a Hordika weapon.
Ah, yes.
Again, Tower of Toa. With the black Hordika Vakama weapon, which, you know, it's interesting how Vakama gets all the recolors, you know? He's the only one to get a recolored head, he's the only one to get a recolored weapon. But I mean, it's a great torch piece. Like, having it in black...
having the black is so much nicer than... Like, the dark red's nice, but the black is really nice.
Well, just having, like, a torch with,
black.
It just looks really good, like... It's a good recolor. It's like Tower Toa really does have the best. Like, it's got the recolored weapon, the recolored Bork piece, the recolored Kanohi mask.
Yes.
Like, and on top of it, you have the silver Mata head, and then just to top it off, you have the giant Taragaduma face.
Obviously, it's not a recolor.
I would say that Tower Toa. I mean, that was the one I also first got, so I have a bit of nostalgia. But for me, it was one of the best sets ever because it was black and dark blade. As someone who liked building castles, it was a great parts pack. And honestly, those
in a sense, it was a castle.
Well,
it's set.
Arguably, the thing about all three of like the first sets is they were actually decent parts pack for basic brick if you took out the Bionicle parts. Because pretty much you had Bionicle parts and then you had very basic brick.
Very basic.
But that was also how the problem was the clash.
2006, they still were only just starting to really branch out with crazy.
Well, you could tell that like with 2005, they were kind of making do with it by having, stickers. Because Tower Toa and they all had stickers with like Bionicle like lettering or numbers on them. And so, you know, to make up for, I would say, the flatness, they put stickers, which I like the fact that there are some Lego pieces with like Bionicle writing stickers on it. You get one of those 4x6
4x4
partial
panels.
tiles. essentially, with a couple, Bionicle letters. Put that to a Mator, and he's got a nice tablet with numbers and notes on there. It's a nice little accessory. Like, I like it. It's a good size. But you were saying with 2006 that they were
just starting to make more slow parts. So that's why I just like in 2005, 6. Like it's still a lot of just more simple pieces.
I mean, if you look at system sets during that era, they were in a kind of awkward.
They were just getting out of the awkward Jack Stone era,
Which T.O.A and those sets definitely still would fit right in, except the fact that they didn't use big bricks as the bases of their sets. Yes. They had big plates. But it's interesting because, like, when I'm thinking about 2006 and recolors, the only one that actually comes to mind wasn't even a recolor, technically. Or was it a recolor? When did Vikings come? 2006? Yeah. Because one of the Proc outposts that I believe has the quote-unquote Fenrak creature, and it has a dark red Toanuva leg. Which, so if you had all the Vikings, if you had every Lego set, you would have a pair.
Yes.
So, like, that's like the only really recolor I think that wave really gave you when it came down to Bionicle parts. Although it makes sense because they made more molds for all the figs, You get the big face mold. They had to take the budget somewhere, and colors were very much the, I would say...
on the downswing.
Because it's like, I mean, Lego's always kind of been on the downswing recolors, like, over the years, where recolors aren't as, they're not as special to sets. Like, if you're going to recolor, you're going to make them useful. So you're not going to get, like, one-off recolors nearly as much anymore. And like I said, there might have been other recolors of Bionicle parts in 2006 system sets, but I don't think so. I have perused Bricklink with Bionicle parts. I own pretty much every Bionicle part from the system sets to some degree, so I don't think that they
and now in 2007 there was a few.
They had a bit of a color scheme to them.
Like 2007 has some like some Brocky.
Yeah, we had two different Brocky heads recolored. T.O.A in solid white, which I think everyone can think is really cool, which is interesting. Okay, this is interesting because he's got recolored in solid white, and then Crappers got recolored in black and white, melded, like with the marbling. Funny thing about both those heads is they both got a other recolor, because you got a second Crapper one with Nocturne, and then Titan Takanuva did with Pearl Dark Ray for T.O.A.
Yes.
So for Brock, you either get no recolors, or you get 3 versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of the Brocky recolors in general, both not only the pinchers coming in white.
Yes, that was another one.
But also T.O.A.'s weapons.
So you could basically make an albino T.O.A.
Well, with his weapons being black and white too.
Sure, why not?
The only problem with making albino T.O.A. is his arms would be Thok white rather than white, but I think...
still works.
Seeing a bunch of T.O.A. and just having one white in there would actually be kind of amusing. His feet,
Zacta has a band.
His feet, though. I'd give him black, If his weapons would have a bit black, so I'd give him black. But you get, like, the product, the Brocky Pincher, the product weapon.
Well, the T.O.A.'s armor comes in silver, though. No,
that was the first time I think it... Well, Max Sulos, I think, also has it in silver. No, he doesn't.
I don't know. I'm just thinking of... I got on my little tangent of making albino T.O.A.s here. You'd have to use a...
Well, you have silver of his armor.
Yes. No.
You would have a pretty bright T.O.A. Wouldn't be perfect, but not without paint. Which is always an option.
Spray paint. Well,
yeah.
The whole world is your oyster, as they say.
Now, let's be honest, when it comes down to recolors in the systems, actually, the 2006 has some of the best recolors, but they're not Bionicle recolors. They're the trans-red cockpits from the T.O.A Train Crawler and the Medium set.
Yes, yes.
Because the people who build space, like 90s classic, 80s and 90s space, having trans-red recolors...
Space Police 1!
Especially up to that point. You had Space Police 1, the first wave of Alpha Team, or Alpha Team in general, and then that. That was like pretty much all the trans-red that LEGO made. Outside of a few random, like, really small windscreens. I think they've made more over the years now, but, like, it's nice, and it's definitely, what's the word I'm looking for? Cool, I guess?
Sure, why not?
See, the problem with these sets is because I actually haven't opened them. My knowledge of them is a bit more limited. However, the most interesting recolor that I kinda, and I hate, but simultaneously is kind of cool, is the fact that they only used 3 T.O.A masks for the figures. Which means you get recolors of masks that you wouldn't get recolors in larger form. So in theory, if you wanted to make a custom Bionicle minifigure that isn't like based on a canon character, you can do it. Like I made a minifig Dentar because Nupru, despite they made the mold for Nupru's mask, they used Howley's mask in black for Nupru.
Definitely one of the things that drove me nuts was just the improper use of some of the molds.
Like I said,
if you're going to use 3 and 3, at least match them up properly.
Yeah, they really botched it. Like Huki used his proper one. I believe.
Kadok?
Well, I'm thinking of the T.O.A. It was Howley used the proper one, Huki used the proper one, and then, well, Javelin and Huki both used Huki's. Howley and Nupru used Howley's, and then Kongu and Matoro, in theory, used Nupru's. Yeah,
it was a mess.
Don't get me wrong. Nupru's does work pretty good for Matoro. Like, you can get away with it. But Jala using Huki's? Yeah, no, that's not the greatest. But, like I said, at the same time, the idea of basically the fact that you have, and then because it's T.O.A yellow, you have a yellow mask of, Stealth, yeah. Which, you know, it's like, okay, having extra colors, you know, of masks is kind of cool.
It's like, unfortunately, they're minifig scale.
And it's like, so for purists, you know, it's like, it's cool for the fact that you can do it, that you have options, but it's freaking annoying. And especially, like, you look at the Baraki, okay, of course they have to give Kalma his head, because he's, like, the iconic Baraki. He's the poster boy, literally. He's on the posters. And so, he's got 3 eyes. And they use the exact same print on the same mold, but in green for Elec. If they just used the same mold but different print where it had just 2 eyes, you might have been able to get away with it.
Yeah, you might have been able to.
But again, like I said, you could very much tell that Lego was budget cutting at this point. Like, they only made 3 sets. The system wave didn't survive after that. And yeah, no, it's very much was doomed. And that's the reason why I think I never got into the sets I was on. I mean, I was happy that Huki at least got the right mask and probably the best representation of the minifig. Well, his and How's both looked pretty good. But they didn't have a crapper minifig. Which, me, collecting all the brown and yellow characters, that very much bothered me. I wanted my Crapper fig. And not only that, but Crapper also gets killed in the canon story. Crapper just cannot take a break.
Can't catch a break.
He's also was known as the idiot guy, the dumbest guy who basically would get duped by Cadox with his mind, like his hypnosis. So my poor brown people, my poor boys.
Brown.
But actually, on that note, I just remembered something because
Element of stone.
Well, one thing I remember that I thought was really funny was Jawa's mask being the Garai or Huki's mask in red, right? The best thing about that is Zakta has a T.O.A in his universe that's a T.O.A Fire with that mask. Nubix.
Yes.
And there's literally a fig for him there. It's like, congratulations.
That's not Jawa, that's Nubix.
You have a fig for Nubix. And that's T.O.A Yellow, that's Nongu. Yeah, I made a mock specifically based off that fig, despite him not actually having that mask.
Yeah.
I changed the mask. Well, I was going to give him that mask, but I didn't have any extra, so I just used a, what's his name? Norix mask instead. And I got attached to it, and so I just,
kept it.
I actually have a little short story about Nongu, so if anyone's interested in reading that, I can link it in the video or something, if you guys are curious. Or not. It's like 6 pages. Just a short little story. Completely made up, non-canon. So, with looking at all the system sets as a whole, the best way I can say is inconsistent spaghetti on the wall.
Let's just see what sticks.
Well, it's like you look at the style of builds from each wave. You know, the first one was a lot more brick with Bionicle stuff added. The second one was heavier on the Bionicle and like less building-ish and more just, I would say,
Platforms.
And they also had like the raised baseplate things, like for it. And then the last wave was like, well, we're just going to do vehicles, but add maybe more creatures. The figs were different from each year. You went from having all the characters to something. The first wave, you had the Visorak, which had all the 6 variants for shapes, but they didn't match the colors.
Just black and glow in the dark.
Which I don't know if I like that or not. But then the next wave, you have every character unique with their own weapon. But then the last wave, they used the same weapons as the 2006. They cheaped down They give you new arm designs, but they didn't like redesign all the heads. And T.O.A had 2 versions of him. One with the proper head, and the one with Mantax's head.
Yeah.
So you had T.O.A looked correct.
You're trying to trick us into thinking that there's more, but there's not.
Well, I think, again, the funny T.O.A head comes with the same yellow Toad Yellow, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that set specifically has, like, the worst versions. It's the only set with Elec who has, Kalma's head. Like, pretty much the small set is actually a good set. You have Huki, Kalma, and Mantax. All of them with the proper heads. And, more importantly, as the jellyfish. And as you and me know, the jellyfish is canon.
Oh, yes, the jellyfish.
The jellyfish is canon.
I forget why.
I don't know, the style of jellyfish, if you look on Biosector 1, somewhere it basically confirmed that's an actual, how it's supposed to look and everything. So the small set, like, all the figs are correct. It has the vehicles simpler, so it's like, it's not overdone or anything. And then Huki's got, like, his bubble pod, right?
Yeah.
It's a nice set. The biggest set, the Toad Train Crawler with, like, the creatures from the commercial, with a bunch of figs. Okay, you have some weirder figs, but still good. The middle set, these vehicles don't show up anywhere.
Characters are all
bad,
over the map.
And it's like, it's just no, and it does, I think, have one other creature, but again, no recolors in that set. It's all in the big set that's got all the good recolors. That set's got a Mantax head on a creature, not a recolored Mantax head, just a Mantax head. So, yeah. What's your any?
The 2005.
Which one do you think is the best wave?
2006. Well, it's hard to say. 2005 had the best buildings.
I like the look of the sets. The sets look the best, in my opinion.
But the figures are garbage.
It's like, you can't... That'd be like trying to compare a set that's got 5 battle droids to a set that's got, like, a clone
troopers.
Exactly. It's like, well, also, the clone trooper set's better, but that MTT is a really good MTT, sort of things.
And the 2006 wave, yeah, the figures are way better, but the buildings were not as nice. And 2007 was just it
has one of the best sets, it's got arguably the worst set, and then it's got a middle set. And the figs, yeah, they're not great. So, yeah. So, in the comments, tell us what you guys think of the Bionicle System sets if you even knew they existed. And, thanks for listening. This was very rambly, uncoordinated. I have a topic, but that's about it. But, that's all the time we have for tonight. And, thanks for listening and watching and all that good stuff. And consider liking and subscribing. I've been your host, Onvermel. This has been the T.O.A Podcast. That's a hiccup. And we're retiring from the night.